Hello, future educators! Have you ever wondered how grammar teaching has evolved over the years? Join us as we explore the dynamic world of grammar education, tackling key issues and uncovering innovative methods. Welcome to Issues of Grammar Teaching and Assessment, Part 2: Grammar Teaching Evolving Methods and Insight. So, here is the lesson overview. Evaluation of grammar instruction, choosing teaching methods, pattern versus rules, and structuralism and transformational grammar.
Good day everyone. I will report about the choice of methods in grammar. So, this topic explains the different ways a teacher can teach in grammar depending on the goals of the learners. So, first, different approaches. Teacher can teach grammar in many ways, like explaining rules, showing examples, or letting students practice and conversation. For example, is the teacher explained past tense, use ed, and students say, I played basketball yesterday instead of saying, I played basketball yesterday. So next we have method depends on the learner's goals. So method depends on students' need if the goal is to pass the exam. So the teacher can give drills like he walks, he walked. If the goal is to speak fluently, the teacher can use dialogue like, what did you do yesterday? Like, I watched TV or I watched movies. So, the next one is we have the third one is each has strengths and limits. So each method is useful but also have weaknesses. Memorizing rules help accuracy, like in the sentence, she studied hard. On the other hand, speak practice build fluency, like he went to the park, but students may still have mistakes. And fourth is best practice integrated approach. This practice is also combine different methods. For example, is the teacher explains the rules, then the student asks to talk about what did you do last weekend. This way, students learn both rules of how to use it. And the last one is combining accuracy and fluency. Good grammar teaching should give both accuracy and fluency. So, for example, the student who learns the rules of past tense and also tells story can visit friend correctly and also say it with confidence. So, in conclusion, the choice of methods in grammar teaching depends on the learner's needs. The best way to combine methods to student can be both correct in grammar and confident in using it.
Okay, so next is deductive method or rule to example. The teacher gives the rule first, then shows examples and students practice it. And deductive method is a teacher-centered, means more explanation from the teacher. And its strength, it goods for clarity and quick understanding for rules. And its limitations, it may feel mechanical, means students are just following rules but without deeper understanding or real-life use. For example, the teacher explanation subject-verb agreement, and another example, the teacher gives the rule about using s or es for verb in present simple with he, she, and it, then students will follow the rules. In deductive method, at example to rule, the teacher shows example first, then let students find the rule on their own. It's student-centered, more discovery and active thinking. Its strength, It's active and good for critical thinking and deeper learning. Its limitations, it's time consuming since students must explore before finding the rule. Also, it needs guidance. Teachers' guidance is needed to help them in the right direction so they can find the correct rules faster and more clarity. For example, he walks versus they walk. Students see examples and figures out the rules themselves instead of teacher giving it directly.
So now we're going to discuss communicative method and task-based learning. So first, we're going to discuss about the communicative method. So communicative method, grammar is taught through meaningful communication, not isolated drills. So it means that it is a way of teaching language through communication or meaningful communication rather than just mastering the grammar rules. So it is to get the students communicate effectively in real life situations. So in communicative method, there are its strengths and limitations. So first we're going to discuss its strengths. So the strength is to build fluency. So it means that the students become more comfortable and confident in using the language. Next is skills. The students will learn how to use language in practical situations or having conversations. Now next we're going to go to its limits. So if grammar is not taught clearly, then the students might make grammatical errors. So communicative method, it focuses on teaching language through communication. And in communicative method, the learners are engaged in interactive activities like role plays, discussions, group works to practice their communication skills. And an example for communicative method is sharing, the students are sharing their weekend stories in past tense. So why is it an example of communicative method? It is an example of communicative method because it uses real communication, like telling the stories, as a way to learn and practice grammar, like the use of past tense in a meaningful and engaging way. So in short, in communicative method, it is a way of teaching language through communication. And now we proceed to task-based learning. So in task-based learning, students or the learners uses grammar while performing a real-world task. So in task-based learning, it is a way of teaching where students learn by doing things instead of focusing the grammar rules. They focuses on completing a task that requires them to use language naturally. So in this type of method, students learn best when they are actively engaged in completing a meaningful task. So in task-based learning, there are also strengths and limits. So first, we're going to discuss the strengths. So this means that the learners use grammar naturally as a part of completing a task rather than just memorizing the rules. While its limit is that we all know that task-based learning focuses in the task. So there might be some situation that the learners might not explicitly learn the grammar rules. So an example of task-based learning is writing an instruction for a recipe using the sequence words and imperative verbs. So the purpose of sequence words, it is to show the order of the steps, while the imperative verbs to let the readers know on what to do. So Learners are not just memorizing the grammar rules, they're using grammar naturally to achieve a goal. So, in short, in task based learning, the students are not just focusing on the grammar rules. Instead, they learn grammar by doing a task.
Teaching tip for deductive clarity. Start with clear instructions of grammar rules to give students a solid foundation. Tips for inductive discovery. Follow up with activities that allow students to discover language patterns in their own thoughts, examples, and the tips for communicative practice provide ample of opportunities for students to use the language actively in the meaningful conversations and interactive exercises. Tips for task-based fluency engage students in task-based activity that require them to apply their language skills to achieve real-world goals, promoting fluency and practical usage. By balancing this approach, this can be a stronger approach by balancing these elements to cater different learning styles and ensure the well-rounded understanding and application of the language. Pattern over rules is a shift towards identifying patterns and underlying logic makes grammar more initiative and meaningful for learners. Regular verbs are the verbs that follows a pattern when we change them into past tense. We will just simply add ed at the end of the word. Examples are walk and walked. You will just add ed and then play and played. And then jump and jumped. You will just add ed at the end of the word. Irregular verbs are the verbs that do not follow ed pattern. Instead, it changes the form completely. Example are eat, ate, and eaten. Go, went, gone. Do, did, done. These patterns are recommended because by using it, grammar becomes easier to understand. Students can see it, not just hear it. It is easier to remember, and it has a more natural learning on how children learn from their first language. When we teach grammar, it's better to show students pattern instead of only giving them strict rules. Rules often have exceptions, but patterns help students to see how English really works. Once they notice the pattern, they can apply it in speaking and writing without memorizing the rules.
Now, let's move to structuralism and transformational grammar. In structuralism, grammar teaching has transitioned from focusing slowly on surface level structure forms to exploring how it focuses on sentence forms. This means that structuralism focuses on getting the basic words and sentence structure right through the pattern subject plus verb plus phrase. For example, the cat sleeps on the mat. However, it often ignores that the same sentence can have different meanings depending on the context. So while structuralism helps us to get the basic sentence structure right, it doesn't always help you understand the full picture. Transformational grammar, on the other hand, is like learning rules to change a basic sentence into different forms. Transformational grammar, on the other hand, is like learning the rules to change the basic sentence into different forms, such as turning the sentence, she is reading a book, into a question form. Is she reading a book? Or a passive form. A book is being read by her. Or a negative form. She is not reading a book. It illustrates how the same idea can be expressed in various ways. This approach helps us understand how to play around with sentences to express the same ideas in different ways, but it can be a bit complicated. So the best way to learn a language often involves using both methods. starting with the basics of structuralism and then learning how to transform sentences with transformational grammar to express more complex ideas.
And here is the key takeaways. Grammar teaching has evolved, blend methods for balance, teach pattern, not rigid rules, guide from form meaning.